Hi, everyone. So, Steve Arnold from San Francisco, co-founder and chief design officer at Amberlight. And we make this, which is a smart socket. Essentially has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi in each of the units. I have a 3D printed prototype we're currently in manufacturing. It comes along with a free mobile app, so we have iOS and Android. We're currently working on iOS, and we'll have Android shortly after we launch with iOS. So, I just want to see in the audience, how many people have been thinking about building hardware or are building hardware? Anyone? Okay, cool. And then how many of you either are developer or designer around software? Okay, cool. Well, just a little bit about me. So I'm actually coming from more of the software design side. Most recently, I was working over at Twitter and helping them launch Twitter Fabric. Prior to that, I worked at Google for a couple of years in payments. And then before that, I was actually at Autodesk working on various different types of products. And I actually started out in the print world in design. So I've kind of gone through many different types of design. And hardware is really an interesting thing that's happening right now. But what I'm here today is to really talk about designing for a connected life. Because if you haven't heard, the Internet of Things is really upon us. And I think much like other movements that have happened in the past, there's a lot of really interesting things happening, and there's a lot of possibility that's before us, but at the same time, there's a lot of ways that it can kind of go sideways. So what I want to do is kind of share a few things that we've learned at Emberlight, partly about, I think, a few basics that to keep in mind if you're going into this space or you're currently in this space, ways that can help to keep you on track to be more successful. And then I want to switch and share a few of the things that we've seen or we've learned along the way that we kind of just show our process and how we're learning. But before I get started, I want to show a quick video. This is from a site called The Connectivist. And they, a lot of the data is from Cisco, but they have a really cool way, if I can get this to work here. All right. Let's see if that. Okay. There we go. Hopefully. Okay, well, let's try it. Okay. No, I'm just going to talk through this. So, yeah, so basically what this shows is from 1992 up to 2020. So, as you see, we start having connected devices, or that's when we start seeing like 1 million connected devices in 1992. And as we start growing, there's really this point in time where Cisco has identified the kind of IoT inception. And that was really around 2009. That's where we have as many connected devices as we have people on the planet. Currently, in 2014, we move up and we've got basically double the connected devices as we have humans on the planet. And then if you move up further to 2020, if you're taking population estimates along with connected devices, we basically have 50 billion connected items to the internet, which is essentially 6.6 devices per person on the planet, which is kind of a crazy number. It's a lot of devices. And a lot of people are talking about this. In fact, it's quite the vision. And recently we were at CES, so this is the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Nevada. And many people were saying it is the year of IoT or is the year of connectivity. And so we, as a startup in this space, we were at CES. We were just in the Eureka Park section, which is really where a lot of startups were. And it was kind of nuts. I mean, they were connected to everything. Lots of wearables, lots of very interesting products. But one particular conversation that we had stood out to me. And if you're familiar with CES, and maybe you've seen some of the videos or if you've actually been, you really just talk to people from morning to night, day after day. And it starts at like 9 in the morning, goes to 6 at night, and it's just like back-to-back people. But I had this one woman come up to me, and she was like, "Oh, what do you guys do?" And we're like, "We're Amberlight. We make this. You take any bulb, and you put this into your Amberlight, put this up into your socket, it goes through our cloud, and then you can control that light through your phone, so your mobile phone. And with us, you can use any bulb, CFL, LED, incandescent, preferably dimmable." And so having this conversation with this woman, she goes, "Oh, so well, that's interesting. Well, you know what I want to do with my phone?" I was like, "No, well." She's like, "Make phone calls, and that is it." And so I was like, "Okay, not my customer, move along." But that kind of stuck with me because we're hearing so much stuff about the Internet of Things, and people are really doing lots of different crazy stuff. But here we have this counterpoint where, we've got people, and this is really, a hurdle in this space. It's like, how do we get beyond that kind of mindset? And so I just thought it was an interesting thing to say, wow, here I'm standing on stage talking about her. And it was really something that, I've had that conversation with a number of people. And if you think back through time, as we humans have evolved, we've always been up against these moments where things are shifting. And I kind of see her as more of the representation of what I call a purist. These are people, I just want to make a phone call with my phone, probably just want to use a light switch to control my lights. And I get it. A light switch is a design that has really stood the test of time. And at Emberlight, we're not saying that we're trying to replace a wall switch. I kind of look at it as we are in addition to a wall switch, because essentially that user experience has remained over 100 years. And there's a lot of kind of trade-offs that we make in there, and I get it, it's a very simple design, but it's stuff that we don't even identify necessarily as an issue. So that's kind of an interesting area for us. But we also live in a world that's like rapidly advancing, right? So we use our mobile phones to make phone calls, read our email, listen to music, text my friend. There's a lot of things we do with mobile phones. So it's a natural evolution that we would think, hey, let's start using our phone to control things around us, right? And I don't know that that's exactly the right answer, but it's the right answer right now. So how do we get to a world where we've got 50 billion devices connected to the internet, and we have an experience with our world around us that is giving us value, a world that is convenient, that adds to who we are as people, that removes things that we have to worry about, gives us the ability to turn off our lights from bed, turn off our thermostat, turn the heat up. A world that is somehow enhanced in a way that is better for us, that even the purists are converted to, wow, this is a pretty cool thing. I'd say one step at a time, and we're really in the infancy of this. I would think that, so I was recently in San Francisco at a conference on invisible design by Gigome, and Tony Fadell, so the CEO of Nest, was there, and he said something that really resonated with me. He said, take customers on a journey year over year until your product grows up. And I kind of look at what we're doing in this space from that perspective, because it's something that really makes sense to me. I think we really embrace that approach. And so kind of in that vein, as you go on that journey, what are the types of things to keep in mind? So these are a few basics that I've kind of assembled off of what we've been doing. So first would say, go after something that's meaningful and relevant, something that you have a relationship with. So your lights are like one of the biggest things that you interact with on a daily basis. It's kind of like the biggest electronic system in your home. And so even going after that, there's still a lot of things that you have to work through. I've seen other entrepreneurs go after systems in the home that are a little bit, make your head kind of go sideways and wonder. But that's okay. We're in a time where people are trying different things. But I really think that if you have a relationship with a system or something that you're doing, and you're trying to change that behavior a little bit, that's an interesting area. Secondly is like augment the experience or add value to it in some way, right? So for what we're doing, sure, we can connect through Wi-Fi, so we give you the ability to control your lights from anywhere. We give you a lot of automation features, and because we have Bluetooth in our devices, you can use a wearable or your phone to basically turn on your lights automatically based on your proximity. So we're kind of doing different things to broaden your experience with your lights through an app. And then lastly, make it easy to understand. So when you get into designing for some of these products in this space, I see a lot of manufacturers creating things, and then design seems to be kind of a secondary thought. So you go to their mobile app and you've got a million different options in the menu. You got very technical terms being used to where, sure, maybe your early adopters are going to get that, but really beyond that, it's like I don't use half of the stuff. So we're just trying to streamline and think about when we have an app that pairs with a device, try to make it really easy for the user, just frictionless as possible so that they can feel comfortable using it. So just to sum up, and this make it something meaningful and relevant that you're going to go after, add value and augment that experience, and lastly, make it easy to understand. So I think if you keep those basics in mind, that will help you to really do something that has more chances of success. It's not a guarantee, but I think that I've seen people trying to do things that are not exactly like they're connecting devices and it might have value to say like a different system, but it's not exactly something intuitive. But I think we live in a world of great experimentation, so a lot of things are going to be explored. And if you look back at our history of innovation, so here's a great image that I got about innovation, say in the Victorian era. So you've got a corset with an expanding bust on the upper right, and then we've got a top hat that is a self-ventilating top hat. So these are innovations that didn't quite catch on, but as you can see, when change happens in industrial revolution, people are exploring lots of different ideas, and I kind of see us in that same spot, but we're doing it with devices and connected objects. So with that, I want to kind of switch over and give a little bit about some of the things that we've learned at Emberlight while being in this space. Now, it's talking about human behavior, and even though we try to keep those basics in mind, we're humans and we do what we do. And we've had some interesting experiences, and I thought it would be relevant. So first up, I would say these Edison bulbs really draw people in. There's something about it. It's where there's this blend of what we're doing we use it a lot when we do demos. We used it at CES, we use it all the time because there's something about the technology of this old and new. And I know that in Europe, it's something where a lot of these bulbs are very difficult to find because their energy use isn't optimal. There are actually people that are making LED versions of these, which we hope to kind of do something with in the future and sell them, because it's something that blending the old with new just creates something that's really interesting to us. And it's something that we're kind of exploring as we move forward. Secondly, dark colors skew male. So when we were on Kickstarter, I put together a lot of stuff kind of fast and was kind of exploring the idea of a very color for color palette. And so when we came off of Kickstarter, I thought, well, we've got these black and white units. Let's go for a more kind of elegant look and feel. This is what our current website looks like. I've been kind of adjusting our logo and kind of pushing kind of the color scheme. And what we found, obviously you need to measure along the way, but through our demographics on our Google Analytics, we saw that we were skewing 90% male. And we know that we need to broaden really our appeal so that we are approachable across many different segments of the population. And so that 90% male is not quite ideal. So I've been pushing the design and evolving it. And so I think, every company is always trying to explore different ways to change what they're doing. And a startup is no different. You're always iterating. So this is kind of the next version or next vision for where we're going. So as you can see, I'm kind of playing with imagery that's more of a lifestyle feel that draws you in. And then it also has elements of kind of the classic with modern. And then we're kind of changing really our focus to say, make your home brighter. So we're really playing on the idea of smart, but with brighter. So there's a lot of different things kind of in motion. So I'll be kind of pushing the brand in this direction and then having that go through all the other elements of what we are doing as a business. So I guess it goes without saying that iteration is key. I kind of see what we're doing much like if you're team building. So forming a company and team building, very similar. We're forming a team while we're building a company. So they're the stages of forming, storming, and norming. And I really see where we're at is we're still in that storming phase, but I kind of see the norming part on the horizon. So our big push this year is to go into retail in a very strategic way. And so right now is the time to really be able to work a lot of those kinks out. But that's something that I think, I've had some interesting conversations with people about how brands live in today's world. And I think as you're a bigger company, it's a little bit trickier to try to be able to be fluid. You see some gaffes that get made, but we are really able to keep this fluidity, but I'm trying to reduce a little bit of that noise and stabilize. But it will always be part of our DNA because we're always trying to improve and make what we're doing the best possible way it can be done. So a little bit about our app. So we are a Kickstarter, as I said. We hadn't even really thought through our app. So on your left, I was playing with this idea of a dial. So kind of looking at Nest and seeing how it is and just trying to play around the physical with the digital. There was a lot going on. The colors were really bright. And so I was like, okay, once we came off Kickstarter, we changed the visual language. So I kind of moved into something, still keeping this, representative dial that you might have in the physical world, just gave it a kind of reskin to match our new brand. But when we really dug into the details and we finally started working on building our mobile app, then we started getting to the reality that, quite frankly, when you're dealing with multiple lights, a list view is really efficient. So we kind of moved into this idea where you have this list view and you kind of drag and drop lights on top of each other to create groups. So it's a very natural interaction. We have a fold or unfold kind of interaction to be able to show the lights. So we're doing stuff in a subtle way, but we are just playing around with it and trying to make it a little easier for the user and easier to understand. I'll admit I still like the idea of a dial, but it's like 2 layers into the UI, so it becomes way too complicated. In terms of visual language, will be, this is an exploration about having your background change throughout the time of day, which we thought was kind of interesting, but we're just exploring different ideas before we really have to finalize. So again, this will be shifting a little bit once we formalize the brand. Again, iterating. So our form factor, our industrial design. So we had a design that was really, really male. So when I first kind of came onto this project, we were working with a concept artist and it was a little bit rough. We had some interesting kind of patterns in texture and feel. And I really started pushing it more to organic kind of curved area. And that's still an image it's a 3D print that we were doing. So we're iterating through that. But again, trying to broaden how the product would be appealing to different people, as well as aligning with our kind of core set of values. And we're trying to explore offering it both in the dark color as well as a light color. But I think along the way, one of the things we've always kept in mind is the ease of use. So we've always consistently been a product where our engineering and our design work hand in hand together, and we're pushing that forward. And we always, we don't require a hub. Each of our units is a hub in itself. And we want something that really can work with the existing infrastructure you already own. So it's just easy to screw it into one of your sockets and go. And we onboard all our lights at the same time. So those kinds of beliefs and items have always been part of our project, even though some of these things that are visual and design related have kind of shifted and evolved. We kind of still keep a core set of beliefs along the whole way. And no matter what you do, I just want to say that despite your best efforts, people will always find ways to come at you. And they'll say very interesting things, some good, some bad, and that's just the way the world works. I think what we've always tried to do is stay true to what we believe in terms of our overall strategy. People ask, like, why are you going after lights? It's a very competitive space, and lots of people are doing it, and they're very big brands. But we kind of see what we're doing as strategically different. We're about connectivity and control, and we give you the ability to use the bulbs you already own. If you think about something like a bulb that burns out, then I go out and purchase a bulb, I have to go to a special store to buy a bulb that's quite expensive. It has, so something like the Philips Hue, it's got essentially a computer computer embedded into that bulb. So you drop that bulb, you just not only lost $100, but you essentially threw out a computer. And we just thought we wanted to try something different and use more about what you already own. So we stay strong on our overall vision. And then the concept that more is better than one. One of the things that we've been doing is really working with people who are doing different things in this space. So again, a lot of people who are on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, we're looking at different ways to bring in their work to what we're doing, because we believe that we can do a lot more as a group of startups or people that are exploring. So there's this company called Scenic, and they create Flow. They were on Indiegogo. It's essentially an input control that allows you to control not only something like an application on your computer, but it can allow you to control your lights. It has a dial as well as a touch interface and sensors, so it can do motion. And so we're working with them to already using this to be able to control your Ember light. So not only control your lights through an app, but control it through other devices. Sentry is another one of our partners. So these guys actually were on Indiegogo as well, and they make a security system that has voice activation. And they really look at the way that your home, we're all in this idea that we want the home to start understanding who we are and what we like, so that we don't necessarily have to turn on the switch of lights or put the temperature to the right temperature. It can just happen for us over time as our houses get to know us. So we think that the voice-activated aspect of Sentry is really interesting. And then lastly, I want to share Luna. So they're currently on Indiegogo. They're a connected mattress pad that has a mobile app. So it can report back to you your sleep patterns, as well as we can do some really interesting things like once you fall asleep, your lights can automatically just go out because your bed recognizes that you're sleeping. And I'd say that home automation and connected devices, we're on a journey. And I think, take steps year over year. And that's a philosophy we really believe in. And I think doing it in a way that we're having a dialogue with others that are exploring different aspects around the same area is really interesting. So the more that you can collaborate with others and bring that into the work that you're doing is something that we find really powerful. Because I think controlling your lights through an app, interesting. Having it just automatically work through other devices or even just your presence, even more interesting. And then enjoy when amazing happens. So these are these moments of delight. Some of the things that have happened for us along the way. I mean, we've had amazing conversations. People come up to say, hey, we just understand what you're doing and how you're going after a retrofit type of idea. And it all aligns and makes sense. So that's a really powerful thing that, it just helps to help fuel you along that path. So when those moments happen, I think it's just like recognize them, be able to share them. We use Slack a lot. We always post the information between all of our team members as well as what's happening on social media. So it helps to kind of bring in that moment of delight and stays with you. So just to kind of summarize, roughly, what we've learned, the tension of old and new is an interesting thing, especially when you get into connected devices. Specifically around design, you can bring in some really interesting plays of technology with kind of modern thinking. Dark colors, obviously, maybe that's more obvious to some, skews male. At least that's what we found. Iteration is essential. I think it's one of these things where you have to have a core vision, but at the same time have enough fluidity that you can explore that and really figure out the path that's optimal for what you're doing. And then just stay strong and keep going. I mean, I guess I have stay strong 2 times in there. So it is one of those things to be essential. And then more is better than one. So I think this is an interesting thing. Not only are we doing Emberlight, but one of the things we did, we just started a meetup called Connected by Design, where we're going to have fireside chats with others who are working in the hardware space. So a lot of people are on fundraising, they're doing crowdfunding, and they're exploring hardware. And then after that, we all kind of go into the same, there's this post-fund, crowdfunding kind of time where, you then start to focus on trying to, if you line up manufacturing, and we already had our kind of manufacturing partners we were working on figuring that out before we even started crowdfunding. But you kind of go into this whole thing where, you can learn how others are doing and how they're thinking about not only their brand, but how they're producing their product. So we're just trying to strike up that conversation and share that not only among ourselves, but other people who are maybe thinking about getting into hardware, both design and engineering. And then when amazing happens, just let it fuel you. I think it's one of those things that we forget, we're always trying to go, and you have to just stop sometimes and recognize when you achieve some of those goals, how fun and great it is. I mean, one of the things, coming off of Kickstarter, our initial goal was $50,000, and we did just over $300,000. So that was a pretty cool moment. It took a lot of work. We had to manage it along the way, but it's one of those things where you have to recognize those wins and enjoy it. So that's essentially my talk. Thank you. A little bit fast, just getting you guys out of here. But yeah, so if you have questions, so just be curious.
Yeah, thanks. So basically you mentioned that if I install your light socket and I can turn on and off lights with my mobile app, you mentioned that the signal goes into the cloud, which means if I replace all of the light switches with a single iOS application and my internet is down, I won't be able to turn off or on the light at my home?
Yeah, so we have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi in each of our units. So yeah, we've talked a lot about, does it go directly to our cloud, or because there can be a local connection. So it's one of the areas that we've been talking a lot about, and security is also a part of that. So we have 2 people on our team who previously worked at a company called Raytheon, which does a lot of government contracts in the U.S. for security. But we're maintaining and trying to figure out exactly what the position would be. It could just go to the cloud and then do a fallback to Bluetooth, but we're still kind of working out those details. Because I know people are uncomfortable. We've had a lot of dialogue about that. It's like that I'm sitting in my room and I'm using the cloud to turn off the light that's beside me. That is how a lot of these products work. So we are aligning with how people work in this space, but we're also evaluating some of those concerns.
And what do you think is next for your company after, let's say, a light socket?
We have a couple of different ideas around products, but what we're trying to do right now is just be laser focused on delivering that first product and making an amazing experience. And then once we get through that, we can then figure out what additional things that we do. We've definitely been talking to a lot of other companies and also lighting companies and lighting manufacturers, but we're really focused on delivering that consumer product initially.
Hey, can you talk a little? You mentioned a few collaborators,
Yeah.
the Sentry, and can you talk a little bit about how you know you're ready for collaboration, what you're looking for in partners? I mean, there must be a lot of people doing hardware right now.
Yeah.
How do you choose who you guys are going to work with?
Yeah, so so a lot of we definitely talk to a lot of different startups in this space. Where we have kind of found interest are people who share the passions that we share. Obviously, that's number one, and that our products could be compatible in an interesting way. So a lot of the people that I showed here, obviously those are different types of inputs, so that's really interesting to us. And so we're open to fostering that kind of collaboration and learning together. So it's a combination of really what the product is, who the people are, how we interact, and then an exploration between that. So it's happened organically up to this point. We do get a lot of inbound, but we're definitely keeping an eye on what people are doing and what they're learning. Part of the thing that we're doing with this Connected by Design meetup is really to bring that to a bigger level. So not only the people that we meet, but then other people who are also interested in this space have a dialogue about that. Because Sentry in particular will be doing a meetup in mid-February, and it's interesting about they went about their choice of name very methodical. They did all this kind of A/B testing, and we kind of went a different path where it was more of this organic choice around how evocative was the name and how did we respond to it emotionally. So it's an interesting thing to have that dialogue among just different ways of coming around the choices you make. So I'd say that right now, we're not directly searching out these partners, but we're kind of looking at the space and talking with them. If there's a match, it seems like a good thing, then we explore it.
How big is the team, and how do you, with 300,000 you said you got from Kickstarter?
Yeah.
How do you keep the team really lean, especially when you're doing all this hardware stuff, and how do you figure out how to do the manufacturing, or did you know this already? And
so it's a good question. So it's really interesting. I think team is one of those very essential things you have to get right, and culture in a startup early on is super important. So our team is comprised of 6 people. And it formed organically in many ways. Again, for me, I was actually in an incubator with my co-founder, who's the CEO. He worked at Applied Materials for the last 8 years. He has a PhD in semiconductors. So he's been in this hardware space for a long time. And literally, we had been in this incubator. I've been working on more of a design community type of idea. And it was towards the end of the whole class where we were in a pitch competition, and I was always iterating my idea and literally would always change it before I do a pitch, and then nobody would understand what the hell I was even talking about. But the design was always, it was beautifully designed and it had a really nice deck. And his was a really interesting idea, but his deck was a little bit rocky. And so we just had this one of these moments, and we just started talking. So I started helping him, and as I started working with him, I realized, this is a really good matchup between complementary skills. And then I'd say the team that's around us comes from that same type of thing. So Atif, who's our CEO, our electrical engineer, they used to actually, they went to high school in the same area and competed against each other in sports, so they've known each other a long time. And then our cloud and firmware guys are, they're actually 2 brothers. So one lives on the East Coast and one's in the Bay Area. And then lastly, Kevin Rolling, who's our VP of product. Atif had met him 6 months ago or a year ago, and they had been talking about different things, and so it just kind of evolved. And in terms of being lean, we're not taking a salary. All of our money really went into manufacturing. So we are just making our way through all of that. We're, currently raising our seed round, but it's an interesting ride. We're really passionate about the product, and we're really passionate about working with people that we really love working with. So, that's kind of that combination. But it's interesting because finding a team is super hard. And as a designer, I don't know if you guys, as engineers on the flip side, I see a lot of non-technical people how do I find, a CTO, or how do I find, a lead designer? And that's a really tricky question, right? On the flip side, as a designer, I've been in that boat, and I now get people asking me how do you find your co-founders? It's I don't have a formula for it. I believe that you have to earn that co-founder, and it takes time. And I actually did a lot of stuff where I was just really interested in something and just started helping. So.
Where do you get the components? And do you work in China? How's your experience? And about the manufacturing as well. What's your experience?
Yeah. So our manufacturing partner is Flextronics. So they're #2 manufacturer worldwide. So being the non-technical founder, I'm not going to be able to answer all those technical details. In terms of deciding the chips that are in our product and deciding all of the technical details, Gordon Kwan, who's our electrical engineer, and Atif have been working on that for a long time, as well as then our cloud and firmware guys. So they've been working on that for a long time, and the choice of manufacturing partner and then what we are struggling with. So as we've been working through some of the details, finding the right chip and figuring out like what works and how that works. And then once we're now into manufacturing, once you get into with Flextronics, they kind of have their phased approach. So those guys, I don't know if I mentioned, but they're like makers of Fitbit and Chromecast, as well as things for like Whirlpool. So they have a wide range. We actually are part of Lab 9, which is in Milpitas in the Bay Area. But the way that Flextronics works is they have offices in different places. So we've been working with office in Shanghai, and we will produce the product in China, but we're also working with Flextronics. It's really through them and their partners and how they work.
Okay, a follow-up to the previous one. What's the timing? How long have you actually, when did you start, and how long do you have with this, the money that you've got? And
So we're good for so we basically, I started helping them about March, April timeframe. Atif had been working on it probably 6 months previous to that. And then, so we will be shipping in summer of this year. And right now, I mean, like the startup partners we've been talking to, those guys are kind of local. And then we have been talking to other like B2B opportunities, which are really interesting. But, there is this like direct to consumer versus B2B, and those are two different animals. And then there's retail. So we're exploring right now, but we have our kind of goal is like, create an awesome product, deliver that to our backers, as well as start getting into retail and then the different partnerships. So you have to like be very strategic about how you do that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve.
Great, thank you.